One day, a village became quiet, and a scary shadow slowly began growing around them. Long ago, there was a village where people worked hard from morning until night to care for their homes, fields, and families daily. At first, the village was full of happy songs, fun games, bright smiles, and cheerful greetings from morning until night. But little by little, everyone became too busy to enjoy simple moments or share happy smiles with the people around them each day. Mothers hurried with chores, fathers rushed to the fields, and shopkeepers counted coins all day. No one had time to tell stories under the old tree anymore, because everyone was always busy with work and daily chores. The children waited for games, but the mothers and fathers always said, "Not now," because they were too busy with work every single day again. Soon, even the children stopped playing and began sitting quietly by the road, watching the busy village pass them without laughter or joy each day. The village grew quieter than a sleeping forest, with no songs, no games, and no happy voices in the air anymore at all. People still lived together in the same village, but their hearts felt far apart, like they no longer cared for each other anymore. In that village lived a little boy named Lino, who missed everyone's happy laughter. Lino remembered when his neighbors smiled, sang happy songs, and shared funny stories together under the old tree each day. He wondered why everyone had forgotten the joy they once shared, and why their village had become so quiet and lonely. One afternoon, Lino made a silly face beside his friend, hoping to make the serious child smile, but the friend did not react. Friend only looked down and said, "There is no time for laughing, Lino." Lino tried again with an old woman selling bread in the market, hoping his kind joke would make her smile warmly that afternoon. He told her a tiny joke, but she was too tired to listen and only looked down at the bread with sleepy eyes. Everywhere Lino went, he saw people with serious, tired, and silent faces, and no one seemed happy anymore in the village. That evening, something strange appeared near the village well, hidden in the shadows, while the village stayed quiet and unaware. It looked like a small shadow, but no person was standing there, and the ground around it felt cold and strange nearby too. Lino noticed it first, and felt a cold shiver on his arms as the strange shadow moved slowly near him. When the villagers passed by silently, the shadow stretched a little longer, growing quietly as the village stayed sad and silent around it that evening. When someone sighed sadly, the shadow became darker, as if it was feeding on the sadness in the quiet village. Lino realized the shadow was not ordinary because it grew stronger whenever the villagers stayed sad and silent near the well tonight. The next morning, the shadow had grown across the village square, and the villagers noticed it and wondered what it could be. No one laughed, and no birds sang near the rooftops, making the whole village feel colder, quieter, and even more lonely. The village became colder, even under the bright sun, as the strange shadow spread its sadness through every quiet street. The elders gathered under the old tree to discuss the strange darkness spreading across their quiet village that morning. Some said it came from the mountains, while others said it came from fear, but no one truly knew the answer. But Lino believed it came from the silence in everyone's hearts, because no one laughed, played, or shared happy moments anymore. Every day, the shadow grew larger and covered more of the village, spreading quietly over homes, paths, and the places where children once played together. Flowers closed their petals when the shadow passed over them, as if they were scared of its cold darkness. Even the old bell in the square stopped ringing clearly, making only a dull sound under the strange shadow. The village lanterns became dim, even before night arrived, as the shadow spread its cold darkness everywhere. People began locking their doors earlier each day because of fear, and the shadow slowly spread through every home in the quiet village. The quieter the villagers became, the stronger the shadow grew, covering their homes, paths, and hearts with heavy fear every passing day silently. One night, the shadow rose from the ground like a dark curtain, covering the village under a cold, silent darkness. It whispered without words, making every villager feel even sadder as heavy silence filled their homes and lonely hearts. The villagers were afraid, but no one knew how to fight the sadness growing inside their quiet hearts. Lino remembered his grandmother saying, "Darkness hates a kind and happy heart." As he looked at the silent village, he wondered if one gentle smile could begin to bring the village back and help the silent hearts feel warm again. The next day, Lino carried a small wooden stool to the village square, hoping people would notice him. He stood on it, took a deep breath, and looked at everyone, hoping his small courage could reach their quiet hearts. The shadow turned toward him, as if it knew something important was about to happen in the silent village. Lino began with a silly story about a goat who thought it was a king and wore a leaf crown. At first, no one laughed, and the village square stayed quiet under the cold shadow. Lino continued, making the goat trip over its royal cape, made of banana leaves, in front of everyone. A small child covered her mouth, trying not to giggle, while her eyes sparkled at Lino's funny goat story. Then one tiny laugh escaped into the quiet air, surprising everyone in the village square and making Lino smile softly. The shadow shook, as if the tiny laugh had touched its weakest part and filled the dark air with hope once again. Lino saw it shrink just a little, and his eyes filled with hope as courage warmed his heart again in the village. He told another funny story, this time about a rooster who was afraid of sunrise and hid behind a basket every single morning. One villager smiled, then another, until small smiles began spreading across the quiet village square. Soon, the bread seller laughed so hard that she dropped a loaf into a basket, making nearby villagers laugh even more. The black shadow twisted and pulled away from the sound as laughter grew louder and filled the village square with warmth as in golden light. The children began clapping, laughing, and pretending to be royal goats, wearing leaf crowns and marching proudly around the village square. The adults laughed too, remembering how good joy felt after many quiet days without smiles, songs, or laughter. For the first time in many days, the village sounded alive again, with laughter, clapping, happy voices, and hopeful hearts. The shadow became smaller and smaller with every laugh, until warm light began returning to every corner of the village. It tried to hide behind the old well, but kindness followed it like sunlight, and the shadow slowly disappeared from the village square. Lino thanked everyone for laughing, sharing, and standing together, because their kindness brought light back to the village again after many quiet days. The villagers realized they had not only lost laughter, but also time for one another, kindness, and simple moments together. They promised to work hard, but never forget to smile, care, and share happy moments with one another every day. The old tree became a place for stories, jokes, and songs once more, where children played happily and villagers gathered with smiling hearts. The flowers opened again, brighter than before, filling the village with color and hope, as if they too were smiling under the sun. The birds returned to the rooftops and sang with the morning wind, filling the village with sweet music, fresh joy, and peaceful hope. Lino became known as the boy who brought laughter back to the village, with kindness, courage, and a smile. But he always said the village saved itself by choosing joy together, because every heart helped bring back the light. From then on, every evening, the village shared one story before sunset, keeping laughter and kindness alive in every heart. The end.